I am gonna start I haven't started the stage yet, but I'm gonna make it public. So we're gonna public, and we'll start in 3 minutes. All right, we have begun the stage. So we are public. I'm gonna do my @everyone ping, but for those of you just joining in, I'm gonna ping really soon. Let us know in chat. Hello, everyone. Cool. We can officially start in 2 minutes. All right, I'm gonna.
Good.
Oh shit! I pinged. So every time I do my @everyone ping, like it always tags someone else in the server. So I am going to just ping it on the bottom. It always tags Eve instead of everyone. But definitely use the chat above to engage with our buddies here. Okay, I always had to tag everyone at the bottom. All right, pinged. There we go. All right. It literally does that all the time. But we are public. So joining in, we will officially get started in 2 minutes. Let us know where you're calling in from and what role you play in tech. We're here with Rick and Shawn, product manager and staff product designer from Discord today. So this lovely app y'all are using. So you're on for a really exciting ride, and I see all of you buddies in chat. Yeah, we're public. Go on stage discovery. We're here in stage discovery. So yeah, definitely join us. And yeah, feel free to share what's the highlight of your week. For those of you joining in, let us know where you're coming from and what role do you play in tech. And we'll get started in 2 minutes or 1 minute. And this event will be recorded. And if you sign up on Luma, which is where I pinged at everyone, you'll get recording of this on our YouTube channel afterwards too, emailed to you. Isn't just me. Oh, we haven't started talking yet. We're just waiting for everyone to trickle in. But if any of the panelists want to say something, feel free to say hi. We're not live yet, but we will be soon. Rectangles in Figma. I also make rectangles and circles in Figma. It's so great. We're rectangle designers. All right. We can go live now. Let me know when it's live in the chat, Yashar. Are we live? Oh, we are live. Welcome, everyone. This is our first public Discord Stages event. In this event, we will learn how Discord Stages was created with product manager Rick and staff product designer Shawn from Discord. And we'll also learn about how they collaborate together as product managers and designers. And for those of you who are new to design or working in design, you'll gain some insider tips or some tips about how product and design collaborate in industry and some best practices from their experience, and also a nice story about how Discord Stages was created. And yeah, so if you're all new to Design Buddies is a 25,000 community that I started in April 2020. And yeah, we're just a place for people to hang out, vibe, connect with each other. We have lots of events like this for all sorts of design. We're mostly UX product design, but we're really trying to branch out into other types of design as well. And I'm Grace full-time. I'm a product designer at Electronic Arts, so I'm super excited for this event. In the chat, feel free to just engage. Let us know where you're calling in from and what role do you play in tech. Are you a designer, product manager, software engineer? Get to know each other. And during this chat, you'll have a networking sheet where y'all can connect with each other too. So for the agenda of today, we'll start off with an intro and questions. And these are the questions that you have all submitted in Luma. And then we'll also have Slido. This is where you can ask questions. Sometimes the chat can get a really really engaging. So we just really want to make sure we don't miss your questions. So make sure Slido will be dropped by our mods for this event, Jack and Uju, Design Buddies admin. So make sure you submit your questions in Slido and upvote your top priority questions. And with that, we'll start our exciting discussion. So we'll start with introductions. How did both of you get into design and product, like your professional path and education and internships? And we'll start with you, Shawn, since you show up first on my screen.
Well, hello guys. Thanks for inviting us to the stage. My name is Shawn. I'm a staff product designer at Discord. I actually started design by working on a startup of my own when I was in college, UC Berkeley. I studied computer science back then because that was like the closest thing to product design. It was really heads down, wanting to build like a startup. You could say it's like almost like a medium, like a blogging platform. And back then, I think the best way I feel like for me to contribute to a startup or contribute to making this a reality was by designing the experience and look and feel of the app and the product. So that's why I kind of I try to study how other apps work, how other apps look and feel. And I did a lot of like case studies of like say looking at other apps on Dribble, like on App Store and stuff. And that's how I would say like I got into design by looking at other apps and working on my own project. Since then, I worked after that. I worked at Box as a product designer, and then I worked on another startup called Blitz with Rick, who also I met at UC Berkeley. And I think that was how I like developed my design talent, like from Berkeley startup scene to Box, and then Blitz with Rick, and then Blitz got acquired by Discord, and so I ended up at Discord.
So thanks for sharing. I also got into design because I was fascinated by lots of apps. And Rick, would love to hear your intro too.
Cool. Hey everybody, this is Rick. I'm a product manager at Discord, primarily leading our creator ecosystems group, which focuses on helping essentially y'all and people who are building cool stuff on top of our platform. So I got into design more on the product route, I would say. So I also went to Berkeley with Shawn. Shawn and I actually met in a class where it was essentially just a class for building side projects, essentially. And so kind of through building a lot of different things here and there, and there were truly projects, not quite companies, just ended up learning a lot and trying a lot of different things that were popping up, whether there were new startups, things on Product Hunt, things showing up on Hacker News. And I think through sort of evaluating these apps and kind of looking at how they did, their user experience, that's really where I got into design and got into product. Eventually at college, ended up started working on a side project at the time, specifically related to esports. Essentially, it was an app that helped people keep track of like what was going on in terms of like the scheduling, news, and what your favorite teams were doing. And that eventually kind of took off, and we ended up starting a company around it with my co-founder John, who's actually also at Discord with me right now. And so worked on that for a couple years. And eventually, actually, while we were working on that product, about a year in, I realized that my design chops was not enough anymore. And so I caught up Shawn and was like asking him if he wanted to join us and help us sort of make our design not look like crap. And so that's really where we got started working together. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all, for sharing. I see in the chat, Shawn's boss is here, Kevin, and it's nice to see you here too, and all of our buddies in here. And yeah, thank you all, everyone, for joining in. Feel free to definitely engage in the chat. Yeah, and we will be also going through some questions that y'all submitted on Luma. So let's start with the beginning. What provided the foundation and inspiration for stages? Was it podcasts or something else? And any of y'all can start.
Yeah, I mean, I think This is sort of a similar narrative for how we build at Discord, especially sort of on the creator side of things. Most of our inspiration comes directly from what like servers like y'all are doing, and what other servers are doing. So a big part of Stage and the way we built Stage and our focus was really about empowering existing communities for what they were doing already, which was running events where their communities can come together, can hang out and talk. Obviously, not all of them are like major events like this one. Oftentimes, people just get together and listen to something together or hang out or debate. But that was really where the core of the inspiration was. And as we sort of observed this behavior grow on the platform, and as we thought about, how voice channels just weren't designed for one of these for these sort of few to many audio events. You don't know who's talking. It's not sorted. It's really hard to manage. We just kind of dove a little deeper and ended up thinking through about like what the core of what Discord is about. And so for us, looking at these audio events, we ended up kind of thinking through that honestly, they were just a really good pathway for people to be part of a community, to understand what the community is really about. And so that was sort of the inspiration for Stages and empowering Stages, which is we wanted to build a better window into discovering great communities on the platform, and providing a better tool where communities can organize and sort of gather their conversation into one single place, made it so that we can make those things discoverable. And so as a user coming to the platform, you can go to Discovery, and instead of joining a server and seeing 50,000 text channels and not knowing where to go, you're directly plugged into a conversation with the people that you might be interested in, that might be your friends. And so that was really kind of the core inspiration of how we got started.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. I definitely think it's a great product and way to really engage people and have people find where discussions are happening. I also felt the same about server discovery, because I remember when I first joined Discord, because of the game I was playing, MapleStory Mobile, I was kind of lost into where to find like communities and stuff. I definitely feel like stage discovery and server discovery features like this help really onboard new people into Discord. And yeah, I see a lot of y'all from the Discord partner server, so I just want to say hello. Thank you all so much for joining. And yeah, so Shawn, did you also want to add anything to that? Just want to make sure I didn't cut you off or anything.
Well, I think Rick answered most of the questions. I mean, addressed most of the things about how we started with building Stages. I think it's just that we've seen how servers are, like communities are using voice chat, which is already an existing primitive on Discord, and they're using this to connect with like-minded people. And we just want to make that more discoverable and kind of opening up to and opening up to the larger world. And I think that was a catalyst for building Stages.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw in the chat, Thorowin said Roka's gifts is so cool. Yeah, we were just talking about it earlier, how it looks like you're like, the character's like animating when you're speaking, and just wanted to highlight that. And yeah, so we're gonna move on to the next question submitted by our friends on Luma. And if you have any questions right now in the chat, definitely please submit on Slido. This helps us surface our most top priority or most popular questions as well, so we can organize a discussion accordingly. We also collected a list of questions y'all submitted as well. So our next question is, how did you develop the timeline for your project? Did you plan the whole picture ahead, or did you have to remove plans that didn't work out in the long run and just went with the flow? So I'm going to paste that question in the chat too.
Yeah, I can take that one first, and Shawn, you can maybe add a little more color sort of surrounding the design part of this. So I think the reality for any project sort of at Discord, and probably a lot of other different companies, is that sort of the start of the project is really understanding like who you're building for and what exactly are the specific use case that you want to solve for. And once you figure that out, then you kind of work backwards on sort of scoping out what are the minimal requirements that you need to build in order to cater to those specific use cases. And so it is sort of both sort of a bottoms up, where we're figuring out the various components and how different systems connect, and sort of estimating each piece and how long that would take. And then also working sort of from top down, where at the end of the day, I think having a deadline, having a timeline is also a forcing function to build things faster and to deliver essentially value to users earlier than later. And so having a deadline helps you realize, okay, well, is what I am building ultimately like too much scope? Am I adding too many different things? And it helps sort of prioritize and figure out what you need to do in order to kind of stay true to what the use case you're trying to solve for, and actually achieving that. We had most of this planned pretty well ahead, I think. A big part of this was we were looking at an existing behavior that were happening on platform. Like we could attend events that people were hosting within Discords. And that really helped a lot in terms of understanding like what were the core use cases that we needed to cover. And I think with any project, there was definitely a lot of iteration involved. Like as we built things out, as we trialed them, like our team tends to like to set up what we call play tests every 2 or 3 weeks or so, where we're essentially trying out the product, and kind of through those mini play tests, you end up learning a lot for like what feels great, what doesn't feel great, and things that you can improve. And so during those play tests is sort of when you figure out how to iterate scope. Yeah, so that's sort of how generally we approached it. Things that we cut were very sort of straightforward. Like one of the things that we cut fairly early on was the ability to screen share. I know that's something that people want a lot within stages, and it's something that we do eventually want to add. It's just technical scope wise is very difficult. And so we looked at what people were doing in voice channels today already on our platform. And the reality is that, voice channels don't support video above 50 people today. And so it didn't feel like something that we needed to go and delay the shipping of this product in order to cater, but it is something that we can add later on as we figure out sort of the technology aspect behind video and scaling that to more people.
Well, I can add a little bit in terms of from design point of view, how the process went out. I think Rick and I first started brainstorming on stages like mid-February. And back then we didn't have like any concrete spec. Like we know roughly what problem area that we want to tackle and roughly what the goal of the product is. And based on that, I think the way Rick and I collaborate together is that like I'm not necessarily dependent on Rick's spec in order for me to design. As in like basically we have a rough alignment when it comes to the problem area and the product goal, and based on that, I would start designing what would be like a blue sky, or like what would be the ideal version of this product would look like. And obviously, this is not something that we've built. I know that, but it's something I would like to start from a concept car first, and then strip it down to okay. So based on this concept car and the North Star vision of what this product would look like, I'll strip it down to what would be the core necessities that we need to build for V1 for the first 90 days that Rick's talked about. So yeah, so first I designed the concept car, like the blue sky picture, and that included like say text chat, video, and all like scheduling event, all of that. But like based on after I lay out like the full picture, then like Rick and I will kind of come together and kind of think about, okay, so what is the minimum viable product that we need to build to deliver the core value to users? And that's how we planned out the 90 days and 90 days sprint. So I think in terms of like a retrospective, I would say that like I think for as a designer, it's important to kind of communicate to the engineers what you're building and what you're not building. This is clearly communicate. These are the stuff that are in concept. And these are the stuff that are that we will build, because otherwise engineers will get confused as to like, oh, are we going to build everything? So because they will be planning for that. So I think in retrospective, I could have done that better as in terms of communication, making it clear what's concept and what's not concept. But yeah, I think that's how I brainstormed or like kind of went about developing the stages in terms of design.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
And yeah, in terms of sequencing, it really is a collaborative process if we're talking specifically about coming up with the timeline. What Shawn, like generally Shawn and I are usually around the same, like we try to stay ahead of where the team is going to be from sort of engineering and analytics and perspective, where the designer and the product manager should be a couple weeks ahead and sort of seeing where we're trying to go. And then once we have something a little more concrete, that's when we loop in the team and figure out like exactly like, do we agree with what we're building? Like, what are we actually building here? And kind of iterate and debate. We actually went through a design review of a new thing that we're building today and made quite a few changes in terms of how we want to do something. But we've been working on those designs for a little bit, and sort of the product thinking for that for a little bit before we started sharing with everybody else. But through that, once we go through it with the whole team and talk through exactly if this is exactly what we want to build, Shawn will go sort of iterate through the final set of designs. And that's really when the timeline comes out, which is, okay, well, we know exactly what we're trying to build. Engineers are doing sort of research spiking and figuring out how long it will take to build some of these things and the open questions that we have from a technical perspective, and then bringing that all together, like, here's the ultimate timeline for what we want to hit for the product that we're trying to build. So that's usually how it works. It's very sort of conversational, and sometimes not super linear, but that's sort of where the fun's at.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw Shawn, you're unmuted. Did you want to add anything too?
No, I just kept that muted. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks y'all for sharing. I definitely think there's definitely a spike in behavior of especially Discord usage and just like audio products in general with quarantine and coronavirus and stuff like that, with the rise of Clubhouse and just like related products. We got a lot of questions submitted on Slido, so I'm gonna try to get through as much as what people, our buddies, want. And the next question kind of relates to processes. Is the top voted question is, how does the user testing process work at Discord? Like, how does that fit into your process of applying a new product and developing it?
I can take that one. I think there are many different types of user testing that we employ at Discord. Number one, we have for this specific feature, we have a little group of target audience that would be Discord Moderator Academy. So we would preview the feature in advance with them, kind of run through the feature. So I think that's one of the ways we kind of get feedback. So have one of our target audience try out the feature in advance and then get feedback from them. Another way is we also have Discord UXR server, which we use to kind of, again, it's a diverse group of people selected from different range of experience using Discord, different demographics that are not just gamers. So we use that also to get feedback from them before we ship the product. And this could be just sharing Figma prototype, Figma design, and getting feedback in a written format. We also, after a product has shipped, we also look at data and we use data to guide our product decisions, and let's say quantitative UXR. And yeah, I think those would be probably the two main ways we gather data, getting feedback from our loyal users and by looking at data after the product has shipped.
Yeah, I think nothing really beats having your target audience use the product and observing how they're using it. And so when it comes to building creator-related products for communities, the standard process for Discord is to ship the feature, even if it's in a janky state, as early as possible to a group of communities that we think are the target audience and having them try it out. And so you'll often find, like, we see this on Reddit a lot, where people are asking, like, how do I get this feature? Like, that's when we're sort of understanding and testing whether what we've built is something that people want and solves the problems that they have. And I think a lot of it, when it comes to specific communities, if we build something that communities don't want to use, we're ultimately not delivering any value to users. And so actually, part of the testing is understanding how admins and moderators feel about the product. And then the second part of that testing is figuring out what end users feel about the product and whether or not it's doing what we want them to do.
Yeah, thanks y'all for sharing. I noticed that we're also a moderator of a community testing out a new stage discovery feature as well. And I also know of Discord Moderators Academy. And for those, a quick plug for that, if those of you want to be a certified moderator, Discord has that. I thought that was super cool. I actually read through the whole thing. It's a lot of insightful knowledge there. Yeah, DMA, definitely. And there's so many questions in the chat and questions submitted on Luma. And so we'll go with a question for Shawn and a question for Rick next. And the top voted question right now is, what does the average day in the life look like for a designer at Discord? I feel like I just had to answer that one because so many of y'all voted that. And
yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the question was, what does average day look like for a Discord designer?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. So it depends on day to day, and what I like about Discord is that um, to this day, I feel like I get looped into. I am getting looped into more meetings, but even then, like my calendar is relatively free. Like I think I have pretty good time when it comes to like heads down design time, and I think roughly I spend say like around 50% of my time doing the actual design of the current project that I'm currently working on, and say 25% of my time doing meetings. So like in the mornings, like from 10 to 12, that'll be like my meeting block, and providing dev support. And the rest of the afternoon, I just go heads down and design. Right now, I currently support 2 teams, so unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time doing explorations. But when I used to support only 1 team, I would take like extra, like say 20 to 30% of my time doing heads down and kind of do explorations on some random conceptual ideas that some of my like designers here would know. Like, and I think that's really good because even though I might not necessarily immediately work on these designs, it kind of sets an agenda or kind of sets a concept for to share with other PMs and other engineers to kind of brainstorm on the ideas and get the ball rolling so that when the team eventually gets to these ideas in the future, they can kind of reference my design as one of the concepts to kind of guide their decisions. So yeah, I'll say to summarize, I'd say in the morning, just meetings and dev support, has some time on just cranking out my own project, and also doing exploration on the side to kind of plan out the future product as well.
Awesome. That sounds so similar to my day as a product designer as well. As Rick said in the chat, wake up coffee. That's also what I do. And if any of y'all, I'm cooking out concept cars, yes. If any of y'all also wake up with coffee, let us know in the chat. Yeah, we're gonna go with our next question that was submitted on Luma, which is, Rick, how do you prioritize features and changes with such a huge platform? Because I'm sure on Reddit and on Twitter, I've always seen Discord, like all the comments, people always suggesting features and everything. So how do you prioritize all these like requests and ideas you have going in?
Yeah, so fortunately, at Discord, we're sort of split up into different teams that focus on different audiences. And so kind of within the areas that I work on, and I primarily work on serving admins and moderators who are running online communities, like that is sort of the scope areas that we think about. But sort of in a broader perspective, it really just always generally goes back to like our core company mission, which is helping people find belonging. Like we want to create products and make improvements to Discord that helps bring more people together, help them talk more, and help them make more friends. And so that's sort of the general North Star that we use to kind of guide our prioritization decisions and what we want to work on. Kind of within the community space, I think it comes down to kind of a long-term strategy for what we're trying to do. And so for right now, a lot of our investment is really on raising kind of the baseline, I would say, MVP of what a community product on Discord should look like. There's a lot of things that even y'all as community creators know that doesn't work that well today. And so we're really kind of hammering home and trying to drive home on areas and improvements that we can make in y'all's lives and helping more people be able to find friends, meet new people, and find belonging within kind of larger servers like this one. And so overall, I think the prioritization is sort of a case-by-case basis at a strategic level based on that North Star. And then from a product perspective, it really goes back to like defining who you're building for. So like for a product like Stage, the focus from the get-go was to figure out like who we were building for. And we quickly sort of honed in that our focus here was building for existing communities and existing users. And so these were people who were familiar with Discord, which meant that we didn't have to overly invest in like new user flows and education of Discord and stuff like that. And so having sort of an understanding exactly who you're building for and keeping that scope there helps a lot in terms of prioritizing what we want to build and what we shouldn't build.
Thanks for sharing. I definitely feel like there's just so many features on like coming in, and so many people just always like give advice or like give like requests and stuff. And definitely, I really love Stages as well. I feel like it's a great platform just to get everyone together. And our next question comes from, and also if any of y'all have any questions, definitely submit on Slido and upvote each other's questions. This question kind of ties back into kind of the concept where Shawn mentioned earlier about like the blue sky thinking. Was there a push to reduce the scope of Discord stages? If so, how did you design around it? Or if it's also like making sure you don't violate any NDAs, like what was like your blue sky idea of Discord, and how did you decide to like scope down?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, as you guys can already kind of expect, like, I mean, like, in the blue sky ideas, you can, I mean, Rick, I can't talk about the blue sky ideas, right? It's pretty obvious ones.
Yeah, you can talk about some of the obvious ones, I think.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, some of the obvious ones are like, say having a text in a stage, having a voice, having a video in a stage, all of that, right? And I think as a designer, you can, it doesn't take that long from a design point of view in Figma. You can like to add a video in Figma, it would be just like add a video thumbnail in your little box, and you're all set. But it's not that easy, obviously, when it comes to like actual development. And knowing that, and knowing the development cost of development, and knowing how impactful and how necessary that is, compared to, like, say, the core like product goal, I think that's critical. So I knew that, like, in terms of our MVP, the text chat, like having text chat is not a necessity. There is a clear workaround for moderators, like, say, like right now for design buddies, there's a event live chat, like separate text channel, and there's a clear workaround. And compared to the cost of building, it's not, the win that you would have isn't as critical. So I would say weighing between the cost of development and the impact that that whatever concept would have in the future and to the user, I think that's how I would like balance between whether a concept makes it in the product roadmap and not. So yeah, I mean, I think that kind of ties into how the user experience and how the experience of the feature is related to the business goal and the product goal. So as a designer, it's very easy to be focused on the aesthetics and the concept, but you also have to keep in mind that design is not just, you're not a designer, you're a product designer, you're developing for the users and developing for the product goal and business goal. So it's always so important to kind of keep those goals in mind when designing, not just aesthetics or not just the blue sky concept.
Thanks for sharing. I also agree. Like, I feel like for me, when I was beginning as a designer, when I also talk with other designers, they always prioritize like user needs, but with just like completely ignoring the business side. And in reality, like the business has to make money so they can hire the designers to make their lives better from other people. And so I feel like this, since a lot of people in Design Buddies are relatively new designer students and juniors trying to get their first design gig, do you have any tips on how people new to design or designers in general can get better on like the business side, whether it's like talking with PMs, knowing more, reading some books about the business side, or how would you, I guess, like recommend for designers looking to break into industry to get like better business acumen?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, how should I answer this? I think the way I think about this, especially for stages, is I think about stages almost as another startup within Discord. So I think about how I would, if I were to treat stages as a new early stage startup, how would I approach building this product so it's successful? Well, first of all, like right now, the stages, we need to make sure that more people try and use stages and come back and see value in it. And we want to make sure that there are more successful stages being hosted on Discord. So that'll be our priority. So I would kind of think about like each feature, that each design you build as not as discrete product or discrete features, but almost as a way, like a small startup in a way. What is the next step, or what is the next step needed to meet the your next goal? And I would approach it that way. Kind of think of it as like a new startup in a way.
Do you want to sort of touch upon, I think the question was sort of about how, in general, sort of like how you've learned how to be a essentially like better product designer, I guess, and sort of what are the sort of things that you've gone through that you found to like have taught you a lot.
Let's see. Well, I think when I was working on my first startup, Iris, I think I had a mentor when I was at Berkeley who was teaching entrepreneurship. He was like, "Shawn, you're building a Ferrari when the customers are wanting a Toyota Camry." So basically, what I was doing was I designed in such a way that everything is super refined. There's a lot of hardcore features when I wasn't really thinking about like what is the features that are really necessary for the users. So I think that was a big like learning point for me. Like thinking about what are the only the necessary features that are necessary as it is as in terms of product to deliver value to users. So I was kind of like I think that was like a big reckoning moment for me. Like uh, thinking about say what is like the core features necessary.
Sharing. I like how you think of like each feature as like a startup within a company, and I feel like that was really cool. And thinking about like how you would measure success. And this brings us to our next question, second most upvoted on Slido, which is, what is your success criteria, and when do you know you have achieved what you set out to achieve with Discord stages? Only let me know this is ND as well. I'm happy to like move on to another question if it is.
Oh no, I mean I can answer this. I think
Okay.
so I don't think there is like ever an end state for any feature that's built around a growing ecosystem. I think the reality, just like with Go Live, with any other sort of engagement feature that we build, it's a constantly growing thing. Like the beauty about Discord and our user base is that people figure out how to use them in more creative ways as the more time you give them. And so on sort of a high level success perspective, like our goal with any engagement feature kind of comes down to like adoption. Like adoption shows whether or not this is something that our community wants and our audience wants, and then it's on kind of growth and retention of the feature overall, right? Which is also another indicator of whether or not this is something that's actually delivering value to our groups, or if it's something that people don't really use, and it's something that ultimately, I think, from Discord's perspective, we tend to kill features that people don't like to use, and so that is sort of how we end up evaluating kind of all new features that we build. Currently for stages, like our priorities here is we just launched. Like it's really only been about 3 weeks since we launched the discovery portion of stages. Our primary focus is really on kind of auditing the experience that you guys have been going through for the last couple of weeks, and trying to make it better in hopes of driving essentially more active stages and more people hosting stages. And so that's really where the North Star is at. And it does include kind of exploring ideas around like what makes hosting an event like this high friction. Like just earlier, before we started this event, we were sort of sitting in this channel doing a mic check. And so can we make mic check something that's a little lower friction so that's easier for you to think about hosting another event for your community? So it's things like that that we're exploring. We have a couple exciting things overall that's coming up pretty soon, that are tied to stages, but hopefully expand to much more than that. Because stages for us is really just one feature of many. Like ultimately communities come together around text, around voice, around events. And so we're adding a couple of exciting things that will tie to stages, but hopefully do more for overall helping people come together.
Awesome. Super excited. I've also loved how Discord rebranded from like, I guess like a while ago from going like chat app for gamers to chat app for communities. So I really love that direction. And I feel like one of the biggest pain points I have for design buddies is to get people who are designers go to Discord because they still think it's a gamer app. But I really just love the general rebrand direction. And we had so many questions about screen sharing. Do you want to touch on that? Or if not, we could just move on to another topic. Well,
Yeah.
screen, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the long story short, it's not easy to do screen sharing at scale. Discord was really primarily built for you and a small group of people to kind of hang out and together. And so, which is why if you look at our video call today and you look at Go Live, it's capped at 25 and 50 people. but it performs really well. It works in real time. You can stream in 4K. Like if you check other conferencing tools like Zoom, like they can broadcast to a lot more people, but the quality is a lot lower. And so in order for us to support few to many video broadcasting, that's not something that our architecture currently supports. And so we have to really think through whether A, is this a use case that we want to support, and is this how people use Discord? And then B, like, what are the efforts and technical requirements that we need to do in order to get there? If it was as easy as like a a snap of a button, like a snap of my fingers, like I think that's something that just like adding text chat into voice, that's something that we would definitely want to try. But it's unfortunately not, which is why we still haven't added screen share yet.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I can imagine how much bandwidth that screen share would probably take up. And with bandwidth, and that kind of brings us to a question from Daniel, which is, how close do you work together with your engineering teams as designers and product managers? Is there ever something you design where the engine, is there ever something you want to design? Could be anything about Discord. If you're allowed to share, if it's non-NDA, where the engineering team can't make happen. I'm gonna post this in the chat too from Slido, from Daniel from Germany. Says it's 2:30 a.m. So thank you for tuning in at these hours, Daniel.
I can take that one. I think it is extremely important as a product designer to weigh into cost, the cost of development. There are so many times when I kind of show the design to, say, software engineers, and we would kind of like go back and forth on what is the cheapest way to build this, which I think is very, very important, because there's sometimes like changing, say, like having, say, 20 pixel avatar in term when 20 pixel avatar doesn't exist, it's going to add additional cost, and that's going to add additional upkeep when it comes to like maintaining the design system. So I would say keep in mind like the cost of development when designing, like whatever's, really think about, is this extra leg from the engineers absolutely necessary to deliver the value of the product, right? So if it's whatever you can do to make the engineer's life easier, therefore making development speed faster, that's a win for the product and your design, and because the users will get the feature faster. So I would definitely try to keep in mind like cost of development, and trying to find like the cheapest cheapest means of development for engineers as much as possible.
And then in terms of working with the engineering team, like we work really closely. Like Discord operates in squads. Like each squad is usually like one PM, one designer, an analyst, and then like a core team of like 3 to 4 different engineers. And so it's really about a squad moving forward as opposed to like kind of top-down management, I guess. So it's not like I come up with a spec, I hand it to Shawn, Shawn does the design, then hand it off to an engineer. It is more of a iterative loop where we're all kind of discussing together. Generally, product, again, like I mentioned before, product managers and designers are generally on the same pace, where they're sort of ahead of the team, thinking through what needs to be built and having mocks to present. And the team kind of gets together and figure out like, do we like what we're building? How do we think about the design? How do we think about the feature set? Like what's hard, what's not hard? What should we cut? And sort of critique it that way. And so it's very much a collaborative process in terms of at least my experience working at Discord and also working on a startup.
Thanks for sharing. I definitely feel like design systems, for me as a product designer, is a great way to really help making sure that designs are feasible and just like efficient to implement. We got a lot of great questions. I saw the Rick Ping emote. It's great. I just want to call that out in the chat. Yeah. And so we have so many great questions, but only 15 minutes left. Just a temperature check. Are you all okay with staying a little bit over time to answer everyone's questions?
I'm down.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. There's so many really awesome questions. Thanks to all of you for submitting. And number one question, 18 upvotes, is where does the name Roka come from? Because I feel like we just had to ask that.
Oh my God. I honestly, a lot of people ask me that, but I don't really have a good answer. Like there's this like player when I was growing up in Korea, like StarCraft player, and I was a big fan of StarCraft, and he used to have like this name called Broca as a nickname, and I thought that name was really cool. So I was like, I'm just gonna name my nickname, my email address, and everything, Roca371. And that's just how it came to be. Nothing really special. There's no big meaning behind it at all.
Thanks for sharing. I also had a gamer name from a long time ago relating to Maple Story. That's another story for another time. So I'm gonna go to our next question, which is which was one of the most top voted one, is in our experience, public stages can bring a lot of unwanted trolls and spammers into our server. Was this a consideration when designing for stages in Discovery, or in general? How do you kind of make sure that just like promote best practices, or just like promote people like not to troll and stuff? Just because it's like pretty public, but just curious if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, we have a lot of thoughts. So I think sort of the North Star that we strive for on a moderation perspective is that trying to like having to moderate your server as if it's a full-time job is not what we want moderators to have to do. I think the goal of being a creator and what we want you to be spending most of your time doing is having fun with your community. And so with stages, we actually think we have a lot of moderation tooling that we need to build in terms of making public stages better. But in many cases, a lot of our communities have figured out how to kind of run these public stages in a way that is more controlled and more maintained. And so a couple of things that we're thinking about on our front is thinking through how can we make sure that the people who are joining your communities and being part of your communities like are the people who actually want to be part of it, and aren't people who are sort of low effort trolls or just want to sort of disrupt the group. And we're also thinking through about giving you guys better control over who gets to join your community. I've sort of advertised a feature that we've been working on for quite a while that we hopefully will ship this year, which is the ability for you to sort of have a better gating system in terms of who gets to join your server from the get-go, and let you customize that in a more granular way. So this is sort of an expansion on the rules screening, membership screening sort of feature that I know Design Buddies probably hasn't enabled as well, but also giving you more control in terms of like if you want to require an application to join the server, if you want to require someone to OAuth into a separate platform to join the server, and giving you more control that way. Ultimately, like moderators and admins know their communities the best. We don't really want to do too many network-wide level implementations because we don't want to restrict people from joining your server if they want to join in a particular way. And so it's really about giving you control. So there's a lot of things coming up that we're going to be focusing on. And hopefully Discord works better out of the box when it comes to spammers and trolls and people like that.
Awesome, thanks for sharing. I'm super excited for all these features coming up and all these like membership screening features. We haven't had too much problem with trolls, knocking on wood right now. But I've seen like stories from other servers as well. And no trolls. By the way, I love that fish driving emote in the chat. I just wanted to call it out because it's so like lovely. I don't know. It's so funny. It reminds me of Pingu a little bit. I just wanted to comment on that. I needed to add that in the Design Buddy server. I see all this fish. I just love it. Just want to let y'all know. Yeah, so on to kind of the topic of trolls. Just moving on to the next question by Chris on Slido, which is what was one of the most controversial aspects of the stage channel feature when you were building it? If you're allowed to share, if you feel comfortable sharing. If not, that's okay too.
Chris works at Discord. Hi, Chris. Controversial. I think one of the controversial is a hard question. I don't think we had any like major controversial things that we've thought about. Okay, Jerry just reminded me. There's one. So one of the controversial things that we debated as a team, and this might seem small to you guys, was sort of figuring out whether or not when you end a stage, should we kick everyone out of the stage channel? So that was a sort of a heated debate within the team in terms of like figuring out whether that was the right user experience. Like we got a lot of feedback from communities where like they're just stragglers sitting inside their stage channel. It's kind of weird. And then we also got feedback that like, you know, some people want to like gracefully exit out of stages. Ultimately, we chose a solution that was both. Like you can choose to end the stage and immediately kick people out, or you can choose to end it sort of silently and quietly, and eventually it will clear out the room. So that was actually one of the more controversial things that we were kind of thinking about in terms of stages.
Was there a reason why people would side for like keeping people in the stages even though there's nothing going on anymore? It's kind of like when we do Zoom calls, like people just like stay on, which is, yeah, I'm just so curious. Where did that reasoning come from?
I think this is the part where there's always a possibility of like people figuring out how to use a primitive in a different way. And so one thing as we sort of design systems for communities, and especially things that we think can be used in a variety of different ways, as opposed to just something that's like one singular use case. It's like leaving room for people to like do different things that we wouldn't have considered. And so I think that was sort of the crux of like thinking through whether or not we should let people kind of sit there. Ultimately, like we did choose to like eventually kick everyone out and sort of clear the stage. But that's generally how we sort of think about that's really where the struggles are, which is like, how do you balance giving room for creativity to users with sort of what the ideal like clean user experience might look like? And so we're constantly kind of juggling between the two and figuring out which like where to draw the line. And it's really different. It's really sort of on a product by product basis.
See, yeah, thank you. We have 9 minutes left, but if we're all gonna go a few minutes over time as well. There's so many great questions in the chat, so I'm gonna move on to next one, which is a little a little more different, which is what is the best / most unique use case you've seen for stages so far? I know some of our Discord partners are in here too, and I've seen some of your stages channel. They're pretty cool, but would love to know what have you both seen as the most creative use case you've seen for stages.
I think the stage that obviously dominates stage discovery currently, but the stage that we didn't expect to see the most was actually talent shows. These were not very common, I would say, before stages were launched, and now it is something where I think some of these stages, the ones that are more moderated and well maintained, have sort of a lot of creativity happening in them. Like Max, if Max is still here, like is fucking amazing. And so we've seen a lot of creativity within stages that are hosting around talent shows and letting people show off their talent. And sort of in retrospect, like these stages make sense. Like Discord has a lot of creative people, but that's sort of been the funnest stage that I've been personally attending.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw Max in here. Oh, Roka. I mean, Shawn, are you calling by your name? I saw you unmute. Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think I was also really fascinated about the talent show. And if you go on, say, like, it's interesting how if you compare this to, say, like Clubhouse, and a lot of times, like, see like a lot of crypto discussion and a lot of, like this VC discussion and stuff. And on Discord stages, for example, if you want to stage discovery, you see a lot of talent shows. And I think that kind of shows to how like the audiences differ. And I was also pretty pleasantly surprised by a lot of the talent shows on Discord, and giving like free nitro and as a reward for participating, and that's been also really, really cool. I've also seen a lot of communities and brands use Discord stages to outreach to their audiences, say like StockX, Grimes, I think Babish too, and seeing creators and brands using Discord stages to interact with their audience has been really, really cool.
Yeah, also Paige called this out in chat, but Roblox stages where they do like presidential debates are like really fascinating.
I've seen those talent shows as well. I remember I was a really big Clubhouse user back in the day, and it kind of died off. But I saw so many like crypto NFTs. That was like people just like pretended to know what they're talking about or something, and just like talked on Clubhouse. But I've seen so many talent shows and like people talking about how to like make clickbait headlines on stage discovery. By the way, we're at the #1 stage on stage discovery right now, so good flex for us. And yeah, it's so interesting how they use talent shows. And I also saw Max in here in the chat. Shout out. I've chatted with him before. He's great. Yeah, there is so many questions. I'm just trying to look for the next one that kind of logically makes sense for our discussion here. Yeah, so there's another question that was submitted earlier, chat kind of bouncing back and forth between live questions and submitted questions is, I just love Discord's branding and how y'all use Wumpus to really promote your product. It's the same thing how we're trying to do with Fluffle, like our bunny. We're like heavily inspired by that. And I know y'all are not branding team, but the question that was submitted in Luma was, how have you managed to keep your UX UI professional while balancing out your fantastic memes that keep it fun? And if you know, if you can also answer this, like how did Wumpus come about?
Oh, this is a good question. I don't think I can really answer to the Bumpus one because I'm not the creator of Bumpus. Maybe Kevin can add it to that in chat maybe if he's still here. But I think in terms of adding delight, that's been really core part about design at Discord. Say you could say Discord is pretty much like another chat app, but if you compare Discord to other chat apps, we add a lot of delightful elements, and it could be done through illustrations powered by our really talented art team, or it could be powered by our tone and voice when it comes to writing the copy. So it can be done in many different ways. So it's a combination of working with artists in advance to kind of loop in, kind of tactfully embedding art in areas that we could use light, and also working with the copywriters to make sure that our copy is not just functionally informational, but also delightful and easy to understand and approachable. And in terms of design, too, our design system, and the way we choose our typography and color, we want to make sure that kind of embodies our branding voice.
Yeah, I saw in the chat, go copy. I just love Discord's copy and how it's like playful, but also gets the message across. And that's like goals for me. Honestly, such inspiration. There's so many questions. Oh, go ahead.
I think copy is often underrated, and I think it plays a big part into how someone feels about a particular product and sort of as they use it every single day. And so we have a great copy team here at Discord, and they also helped a lot with stages in terms of like how do we describe things. And I think what Shawn called out is really true. Like there are the functional parts of copy in terms of like when you're deleting your account or when you're logging out, and we want to be very accurate and explicit. And then there are copy where we want to be functional, but also convey a certain tone about what the feature is used for or how we want Discord to come across. And I think that is something that's like really key. Versus I think oftentimes we talk a lot about art, about design and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely agree. Copywriting can really make or break an experience of the user. I'm gonna go into some of the questions are more for like PM and design collaboration. And so just in general, this is by Anonymous on Slido. How can product designers and product managers work together more effectively? Is it like communicating business values, more stand-ups, sharing the same languages, or any best practices you have here from your experiences?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that comes into my mind is learning each other's skill sets. It would be critical. So from PM's point of view, I think developing an eye for product design and user experience is critical. Like when I communicate with Rick, I think I almost think of Rick as a secondary product designer. So we can have like seamless design feedback together. And I really trust like Rick's eye for design when I'm designing as well. So that's only possible because his like product design skill set is good. And similarly, from product designer point of view, I think it's critical to develop an eye for product, and so you don't necessarily rely or dependent on the product manager when it comes to scoping a product. What are the core necessities when it comes to designing your feature, scoping out like what is the development cost, and we don't have to do. As a product designer, you don't have to rely on a product manager for that. It's something that you can, it's a muscle that you can develop over time. So yeah, I think to summarize, I would say product designers should learn more about PM skill set, and PM should develop more of a product designer skill set, and that's gonna make your collaboration a lot more easier.
Yeah, and sort of to add on to that, I think a lot of this is just like working with each other for a while and understanding how each other think. And so I really think, and I agree with Shawn, that I think when working with a product designer or when working with a product manager, like think of sort of it as a duo where you're both kind of riffing on ideas and figuring out how to get to whether it's a business objective or a specific problem that you're trying to solve for your user. And so I think teams that do handoffs where one person thinks about the spec and then one person hands it off to a designer to like design to the spec just doesn't work that well. I think you want creativity to flow, you want feedback to flow. And so I think a lot of it is just like trusting your partner in this case, and just learning together. I think for any new teams where you're just working with a new designer or working with a new product manager, it will just take some time. And the way you kind of fast forward that time that you spend together is just by talking a lot and iterating together a lot. And so that's sort of the best advice that I can give.
Thank you both for sharing. I also found that it's good to like think of a mindset of like working together, not trying to like overstep or like do each other's work, but just like really asking, getting coffee chats and just asking like, how do you collaborate? Or like, what are your expectations of me during like these meetings and stuff? For me coming as like a new designer. And yeah, there's another question that was also upvoted and on Slido is kind of like, if it's NDA, feel free to just let me know. Do you expect more people on Discord to use events instead of other virtual platforms such as Zoom, Hopin, Run the World? Like I know y'all publicly released the poker game, and so just in terms of like Discord and community and events, is there any like plans or anything that you can get people excited about that Discord is doing?
Yeah, so I think Zoom is a great product. I think Run the World is also a great product. I don't think we are trying to replace what they are doing. Ultimately, what we care about is the community is here and hanging out every single day, and we are the permanent space where you are talking to your friends, hanging out with your friends, whether it's in small servers or in a large server or in DMs. And so I guess the short answer is no, but we do obviously want to make sure that like common use cases that are happening on our platform, we make sure that the user experience there is good. But we're not trying to be an event platform, which is also similarly like why we don't consider like having to build a full like event management tool or anything like that.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I saw people talking poker game. Yeah, I saw this. It was released publicly in like one of the most recent Discord updates. I think there's a server you can join to like test it out. You guys want to help me Discord plug a little bit here? And kind of going back into the PM and design collaboration from Anonymous is, what do you guys do when you disagree with cross-functional partners? For example, a product designer doesn't agree with product manager's prioritization of features.
Could you so cross-functional with who?
Cross-functional partners.
Doesn't this... I see. Shawn, you want to take it because I've been answering a lot, but I think it goes back to just building a rapport with each other. But maybe Shawn, you can walk through some real examples because we disagree a lot.
Yeah, I think Rick and I disagree a lot, but at the same time, we also eventually come to an agreement most, if not all the time. And I think it's because I think Rick and I both have this mindset of like strong opinions weekly held. Like recently we've come in with like a strong opinions, but and then like, we're malleable in a way that we are willing to like rationally think through and weigh in like each other's opinions. And I feel like there are times when I still disagree, but in those situations, I'm willing to take a stance of we'll try it out and see how it goes. And I think that's really important because in design, often like it's very easy to just try the idea out. In Figma, it only takes like 30 minutes. So we try it out, and after that, sometimes Rick would have an idea that he would think he is absolutely right, and then when I show the Figma, it doesn't really make sense, and he would agree. Or vice versa, and I might disagree. I try it out in Figma, and I see that it looks it's actually not as bad, and we would go with it. So I would say as a designer, it's really easy to kind of prototype an idea in Figma. So I would kind of leverage that when you're brainstorming, just quickly brainstorm, like quickly prototype an idea in Figma. It only takes a few minutes and kind of brainstorm together using a visual rather than just like going back and forth in chat.
Yeah, definitely +1 to that. Brainstorming together, like making some quick prototypes in Figma. I also use Figma on my team as well. Super, super useful. And I'm just gonna do a few more questions because I know it's getting a little overtime. But I also want to make sure and we don't take up too much of your time, but we also answer all of our buddies' questions as well. Is the next question is, how do you define the value of a feature before they're made? For example, like the metrics used, or is it purely qualitative and possibly somewhat subjective? I'm gonna post it in the chat too.
So usually, if you're designing, like this becomes really easy if you're designing a feature that's meant to solve a problem. So like, for example, with the feature that I was talking about earlier for membership screening, like the goal here is to give admins and mods more control about who gets to join their community, and vice versa. Also make it so that on the user-facing side, like it's easy to join a community where you don't have to go, talk to Dino for 10 years before you can get inside the server. And so working from those problems, you can then figure out what exactly like are the metrics that you need to measure in order to like figure out whether or not what you've built have achieved the specific problems that you're trying to solve. And so in this case, it would be like the number of people that ended up making into a community that has membership screening enabled, but before was using Dino, for example. I'm not trying to throw Dino on the bus. Dino's a great bot. Sorry. And then on sort of the admin side, it's sort of like how long does it take for them to set up, a gating system today, and how long does it take for them to set up a gating system like ours, and do they feel more comfortable kind of making their servers more public? Because I think at the end of the day, a lot of communities want more members, they just don't want the wrong members. And so then you can work backwards sort of on the metric and figure out how you need to measure the success of what you're building. But I think with any good product, you need to have an audience in mind, and you need to have sort of an idea of what problem you're trying to solve. And then your goal is to build as fast as you can, to iterate as fast as you can, so you can get it in their hands and see if you're actually on the right track. And if you're not, you iterate. Like you can change it, you can modify it, which is generally why we go for speed for an MVP. Like that's why they call it an MVP, because the earlier you can give something to a user, the earlier you can learn and course correct where you're going, whether you're going the right direction or not.
Sharing. Yeah, I see Dino in the chat. Dino is our lovely bot to help blog like swear words and stuff. But yeah, I have Dank Memer blocked. I don't know. But Dino is great. Yes, we stand Dino. Dino the dinosaur. Anyways. But we're gonna go to different questions submitted on Luma now. Is the question is how were you guys able to think of monetizing your product while properly integrating that with the overall platform experience?
Sorry, I was embarrassingly typing in chat, so I didn't hear.
Oh, no worries. How are you guys able to think about monetizing your product while properly integrating with the overall platform experience?
So Shawn and I don't work directly. Yeah. So
Mhm.
Shawn and I don't work on the revenue team, so we can't speak too much there. But I think from a general philosophical perspective, like we want to make money if it's delivering value to you guys. And so if you look at Nitro, if you look at boosting, like the benefits here is like you're only paying if you feel like it's adding value to your core experience. And so users are essentially the customers for deciding whether or not they want to get it. And I think that's very similarly true with some of the other experiments that we've been running. But I can't speak more about that, but that's been our general revenue philosophy, is that we want to align with the users as much as possible and making sure that like we're making money only when you're getting value out of it.
I love that. I also love how Discord's like free to use, unlike Slack, who like lets you like hide your messages after 10K. That's like one of the main reasons why I decided to choose to build Design Buddies on Discord. And I'm just gonna double check if there's any new questions on Slido. There's like a ton. And I'm gonna try to go for the more general ones. But there's another question that was submitted on Luma, which is, in general, like what's life, career, or what's any advice relating to like life or career that you would give to your younger self as like a designer and product manager at Discord, or like in general?
I think if I were to give an advice, I would say that as a designer, as a product designer, you're your job or responsibility is not just about design, as in like designing the aesthetic goal. You also have to keep in mind the design, aesthetic goal, product goal, and business goal, all three. And you have to really think about all three in conjunction. So your goal is not just to make things pretty, but also to deliver value to users and ultimately deliver value to the business as well. So kind of keep that in mind as you're designing it, and that's one of the reasons why when I try to get inspirations for design, I try to look at not just or try to look beyond the dribble of design, not to shade on the dribble, but I feel like then it can be really focused on just the aesthetics. So I think one of the great ways to get inspiration from is looking at App Store, because all of the apps on many of the apps on App Store are designed with these product goals and business goals in mind. So looking at App Store and looking at apps and designs with product goals and business goals in mind is critical, not just aesthetics.
And then sort of for me, shit about AMC. I think besides that, I think it's I think it would have given sort of my younger self sort of more encouragement to build more side projects. I think all my best learnings came from, at least in the early days of my career, came from just building stuff. And like stuffs don't have to be like startups. They don't have to have a business model. Like they're just stuff that you think could be better and you want to try it out. And so I think that is something that I encourage everyone to do. It's like if you have an idea that you want to try, like just try it and go for it, and learn the skill set along the way. And I think that's a big part of growing in general is doing stuff. And so that would be my number one advice.
Definitely plus 1,000 to that. I've learned the most out of doing side projects outside of my academic classes and in like the skills I learned that helps in my career today. So definitely do side projects, everyone. And yeah, with that, we will conclude our event. Thank you all so much for joining in. If you want to connect with Design Buddies, Shawn or Rick, feel free to just drop your links in the chat for buddies and anyone to connect with you afterwards as well, if y'all want. I was also hired at my company where we have side projects too. You can also use these side projects for portfolio review or any last words from Shawn or Rick that you would like to share with the buddies here. We could take a group photo.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah,
I
of
thought Shawn was
course.
gonna go first, but thanks for having us. It's been really great seeing what like you guys have built here. Like it's really, really awesome to have a resource where like people who are learning to be designers or are designers have a way to kind of get together and kind of learn from each other. And then sort of, can I do like a plug here?
Yeah, of course. Plug anything you want.
Yeah, so we're looking for more product managers to join Discord. And so if you know anyone or you are someone who's interested in joining us as a product manager, especially on sort of the community side, we're looking for a couple more leads to join us, kind of lead core engagement products and also moderation. So yeah, that's my plug there.
But yeah, I mean, thank you, as Rick said, for having us here. If you guys are looking for any like feedback or anything, I might just like stick around and like stick around this server and answer any more questions for like the next like 30 minutes, any like extra Q&As. So I'll stick around, and I'll also have a bit of a plug. We, in terms of Discord design team, we are also hiring product designers on the messaging team, improving the tech chat experience on Discord, and I believe on international growth. So if you guys are interested, please reach out. I post a link on the product designer job postings in this channel a little bit.
Awesome. Yeah. And definitely just to support your plug, what are 2 of your favorite projects you ever worked on at Discord or like best memories you had here? Just curious as well. Favorite projects out of anything.
Rick, do you want to start? I need to think about what are my projects.
Yeah, take your time.
There are a lot.
So stages was definitely super fun. Like I am very fortunate to work with a really, really awesome team. We actually brought on a couple of new people as we were building stages. And being able to bond with them and sort of hang out with them and learn from them has been really fantastic. In terms of my favorite project, so I think the project that I am most excited about, which I have shilled already, is membership screening, and I really hope one day we'll be able to get that out, and so you guys can try it out. And so that is probably one of my most excited project moving like in the future that's coming out in the future. And then the other project that I personally really had a blast working on was server insights, which is I think for us kind of a table stake thing where we empower community admins and moderators to have the data on hand to like make improvements to their community and know how their community is doing. And got to work with a lot of awesome people on that project, and it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think for me, my two favorite projects are actually the two projects I'm currently working on right now. One, obviously, the stages. I think I really like our development process, like brutally cutting down, prioritizing, and almost working like a early stage startup within Discord. It's been really, really fun. And another is we've already mentioned this in one of our blog posts that we're working on threads, and I think threads will really scale our conversations going forward, like unlocking more conversations to be had, more scaling conversations on Discord. So I'm really excited about Threads as a part of the messaging team rolling out soon as well.
Yeah, Threads. I saw that comment and Slido. I wasn't sure if it's like NDA territory, but yeah, if you want to talk more about that, feel free to. But I also want to highlight San's comment in the chat. And she just talked about how much side projects helped her, and also they do scan people. So I feel like soft skills are also super, super important as a designer. Being personable, being a good team collaborator is also super important. And joining hackathons, doing side projects also helped me so much because I studied bioengineering and computer science engineering in school, not design at all, but side projects really helped me put my foot in the door as a full-time product designer in the games industry. But yeah, for Threads, so Threads, if you wanted to, I don't know how NDE it is, that's why, but it was like one of the top upvoted questions on Slido.
Yeah.
Soon TM. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I can just say a little bit like it's coming out soon. Coming soon. I'm not gonna say like when because I don't want to commit to anything, but it'll be pretty much like a temporary sub channel, similar to Slack, but there'll be some differences to it. But basically, the best way I would describe it is like it'll be like a temporary sub channel in your server.
Yeah, I'm so excited for that because that is like because that's the reason why like people like Threads, like Slack over Discord, because I have Threads. So now Thread is coming to Discord. Also want to highlight what San also said in the chat. Make sure you're clear. I know because we have a lot of new designers in Design Buddies. Make sure you're clear about who you want to be in the chat and on your portfolio, because I also made the same mistake in the beginning where I was like designer, artist, anime artist, just all over the place on my portfolio. So definitely keep it focused for those of you looking to revamp your portfolio. And yeah, you said, Shawn, you could stay for more. If you see any questions you want to answer on the Slido, let me know, and I'm gonna plug it again for anyone to ask questions. We're having a great discussion. There's still like 136 of you here, and we're still on stage discovery, and I saw I got like 52 friend requests, so yeah, that was really big. Yeah, I'm going to dig around, but if you see one you really want to answer that hasn't been answered yet, feel free to go ahead.
I saw a question on like what tools we use for user testing. So I think there's kind of two folds here, and Shawn can add more, but I think usertesting.com is a really good resource for when you're testing a product with like an audience who has no idea what your product is for, and having them walk through kind of core flows that you've designed and seeing whether or not it has any major blockers for how someone like uses your product. And then I think the other thing is like interviewing your user, like any product like Discord or Slack or Zoom or Google Meets, like actually talking to your users and having them screen share as they go through your product is sort of invaluable. It sounds like a lot of work, but it actually does give you a lot of insight in terms of like little things that they're getting hung up on that you might not observe based on like a survey or something like that.
Yeah, I so agree. I feel like you get so many insights just by talking to people and just really trying to empathize and understand where their pain points are from and thinking of solutions to solve those. Yeah, usertesting.com is one. I remember just seeing that every time I go to the San Francisco Caltrain station. So that's where that reminded me of from. There's a really interesting you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Yeah. And so next question comes from Anonymous. And also if you had to hop off, feel free to hop off. But I know y'all mentioned that you can stay for a while. So yeah, I'm gonna go for the next question which is interesting from Anonymous, which was how was Stages initially positioned to design as something worth investing from leadership? What was the moment you realized Stages was a good bet? Like how would you like communicate like the business value, or how do you like position your idea so that leadership can invest in it?
So Discord is not that top down. I think we really empower individual squads to figure out what they want to work on and start there. And then if you need more resourcing, then you can try and convince the other teams in terms of helping you out. Stage was a huge project sort of across the board. We had a lot of great help from a lot of cross-functional teams. In terms of like specifically this project, like it went back to like the vision of communities on our platform. Like there's basically kind of two general problems within communities. Like A, how do we help more people find the right communities and find belonging within these communities? And then B, once they are there, how do we help them engage with each other and actually build relationships? And we think the way people do that is by doing things directly with each other, not browsing content. And so Stages kind of fit both buckets where inherently when you build something first class within a product, it incentivizes communities to go do that thing. And so we've seen a lot of communities start hosting events because like it seems like that's what is meant for, like that's what Discord is meant to do, which gets people together to hang out, to talk, and to build relationships. And then similarly on the other side, we also felt like these events are great ways for new members to onboard into a community. Like you're joining Design Buddy stage for the first time, and you're seeing that it's a talk about designers, like how to be a better designer. Or if you join, I saw someone join a D&D stage the other day and learned about D&D and now has a community he can go to kind of figure out how to like get into the game. And I think that's the second part where it just sort of fit into exactly what we wanted to build. And so it made it fairly easy to kind of connect the dots in terms of like whether or not we should do this thing. And then the rest of the question is like, does it make sense now? Like, what do we want to do? Like, how do we get it done? And what are the other things that we're pushing back in order to do this? And so it goes back to the vision of communities on our platform, and those two things made it pretty easy for us to decide.
The direction how Discord has been going towards communities, because I feel like it's much more healthier than, I guess healthier in a way that it's like better for your mental health than social media, where just like continuous scrolling. But Discord, you're actually engaging with people. There's no metrics like followers and stuff like that too. And I'm just curious, how many of you joining here live with us today are just found out Design Buddies through Stage Discovery? We're just super curious to find out from that. And we're gonna wrap it up soon, but Shawn can stay a while to answer any of y'all's questions in the chat. But let us know if you're just discovering us from Stage Discovery. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you y'all. Welcome. Hope you all stay. We're a really wholesome community. We have a ton of events like this. And definitely let us know what other features you'd like to see from Design Buddies. We were started in April of 2020 and blown up for 25,000 members as of yesterday. And now we have like 200 just joined us today. And so, yeah, thank you all for being part of the Buddy fam, or we're the Fluffle fam. Fluffle is our mascot. It's the name of our bunny, and Fluffle's favorite food is beans. Yeah, thank you all for joining. I see so many people from the Discord team. We're so honored. We just love Discord as a product. It's like probably like one of my favorite products in the world, just to be honest. And I'm so honored to see all of y'all here in the chat and engaging. And yeah, have a nice day, everyone. And Shawn can stay in this chat to answer some buddies' questions. Any final words before we conclude the event from our mods, Jack, Uju? Thank you all so much. And thank you for Design Buddies admin team for really doing an amazing job moderating and making sure people don't cause problems in the chat. That is so important to make sure that people have a good experience with design buddies, to have fun, wholesome time with the buddy fam. Oh, Brian in the chat asked the question. But yeah, so that concludes our event. Feel free to unmute yourself, and if anyone on stage has any last words for our fellow buddies. And after party in general, yes, Molly mentioned where's the after party at? Yes, feel free to go in general chat. Feel free to hop in our voice chat as well if you want to connect with your fellow buddies even more. Yeah, a lot of people are enjoying it. Thank you all so much for taking your time to come. And I'm so honored to see everyone here tonight. And yeah, that concludes our event. And yeah, as always, I always say this dad joke at the end of every Design Buddies event, and I feel like it would only make sense to say it again, which is stay positive and test negative. I feel like that joke is so soon going to be dated, but yeah, there we go, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Hey,
And make sure to connect with your fellow buddies as well. Yeah, Shawn will hang around in the chat. And with that, we will end the stages. And this recording will be sent out on YouTube to people who sign up on Luma. So I'm going to end the stage. Yeah, so I'm going to, before I just ended it and there's like still people in there. So this event is now concluded. So we're trying to end it.